Welcome to the Simsbury Woman. I'm Shannon Knall, and thank you for joining us. I'm very honored today to be starting my first show with Simsbury First Selectman Mary Glassman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for having me, and I'm honored to be your first guest. And there's so many remarkable women and men throughout the community, so I'm glad that you're taking some time to introduce some of these fascinating volunteers and people in our community. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome. There are so many wonderful and amazing women in Simsbury and throughout the community. I think it's important at a time in our culture where we're focusing a lot on women's issues and women's policy issues that we talk about all of the wonderful things that we're doing. So that brings me, speaking of policy, to you and your career in politics. And I'd like to just start with a background, a little bit about your history, and I'm curious as to whether or not you were raised in a politically active community, environment, family. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you. And I should also just thank you as a woman who's very active in community issues for all the work that you've done in our community and with autism throughout Connecticut. So congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
So I often call myself the accidental politician because I had never intended to run for public office. It was not something I ever thought about. And actually it was a result of our family, my husband and I, moving to Simsbury during law school. We got married in law school, moved to Simsbury, and got active in local issues was one issue in particular that got me active was the closing of the town dump to people who could leaflet. And as a former journalism and a major and a reporter and a lawyer, that issue was really important to me. So my activism came from really that single issue of getting involved. And when a candidate dropped out of the race 6 weeks before the election, my town committee had a meeting, which I was not at, and nominated me to serve. So that's really quickly, 1991, how I became a politician or somebody running for office.
And I hear that often from people who are in politics, that it was one particular issue that they latched onto, that they felt passionately about and began to advocate for. So that's interesting that you started that way as well. And I'm sure at that time it could have been an interesting balance between family life and political life. How did you make that leap? Was it an easy transition?
No, it was not an easy transition. Public service is a tough profession. I love serving the public and love making a difference. But when I was first elected, I had 2 children under 4 and 1 on the way, which I didn't know until I got sworn in. Then I had another one on the way. And actually my son Sam was born on Memorial Day weekend, my first term of office, and it was the only Memorial Day parade I've ever missed. Oh. So congratulations, happy birthday to Sam. But as always, Shannon, it's tough to balance career and family. I also have family in the area. My family's from New Britain. My husband's family's from South Windsor. So it's always a challenge to really make all the parts work. And I think really you have to step back every step of the way and say, is this working for our family? Is this allowing me to do what I love to do, and at the same time allowing me to enjoy my family as well? And I think men and women wrestle with that. Those issues. How do you get the grocery shopping done and get the kids to carpools? And you know, I had a lot of great neighbors that helped me and supported me, family that supported me, who watched the kids or came over when they were sick and helped out. And so we were able to really just balance family and public service life. But I also did not grow up in a political family, as you had asked earlier. I'm one of 4 children born in New Britain. My dad died actually when I was 4. He was 42 of a sudden heart attack. And my mom, who was a seamstress, raised us as a single mom. Wow. And she sent us to schools in New Britain and really stressed going to getting a higher education. And so my brothers went to Central Connecticut and I went to University of Connecticut, law school as well. When I graduated UConn, I was a journalism major, as I said, and I became a reporter for the Herald of New Britain and covered courts and actually covered City Hall. So I got to understand the best and the worst in public service. I actually covered a trial where several elected officials were accused of accepting bribes for buying jobs, and that really was my first experience that you know, when someone does something wrong in public service, it gives everyone in public service a bad name. And I started covering courts and trials, and then went to law school at night. I'm really grateful to the University of Connecticut, which has a night program, which was the only way I could afford to go to law school. I had to work during the day and pay for law school at night. And because of that experience and being able to go to law school, I did end up graduating and practicing law with a construction litigation firm in Hartford for many years before I ran for office.
You were very busy.
As always, and people are always busy. It's a lot to balance.
That's a great story, and I think that it's so important for others to hear that story, because I think there could be a perception about women in politics and how they came to pass and what their background is, and anyone in politics,
right.
really. So it's interesting also to learn of kind of your backwards entrance
right.
into it, and also the difficulties that women face when balancing any career
exactly.
and family, because that is a very real part of what women do every day.
Absolutely.
So thank you for sharing that with us. Were there any particular female political leaders that you look towards as for guidance, or any role models in Connecticut or beyond throughout history that you might reference?
Well, certainly when I was at University of Connecticut, there was a bad storm, and our governor, Ella Grasso at the time, completely closed Connecticut down, shut all the roads, shut the university down. And so although I never met Ella Grasso, my opinion of her as a governor was someone very much in charge and someone very compassionate. So I always thought, wouldn't it be great to be as wonderful as Ella Grasso, in that she was completely in charge, she was compassionate, and she was really hands-on, and she really cared about the people she served. And so certainly Ella Grasso was certainly a role model, I think, for all women at the time who hadn't seen a female governor before anywhere in the United States. So to have someone in our own backyard who was doing so many wonderful things and accomplishing so much was certainly a lot. Arlene Bidwell is another name, probably not as familiar statewide for some folks, but certainly really a Simsbury leader. She was called the Grand Dame of Connecticut politics. She was very active in politics. She passed away many years ago, and she was a woman who was very strong-minded, took her beliefs and became an advocate and an activist for that. She worked very closely with Governor O'Neill, was appointed to a number of committees, and it certainly was inspirational to me to see women take on a role that's very active and bring about change. Other women that I've admired that have gone about making a difference in more quiet ways, certainly in our own backyard, Helen Peterson was the first woman in town that I met when we first moved here. Those who, I'm sure everybody knows Helen. Helen was a very long-serving member of the Planning Commission, and she was also on the Board of Selectmen, and has a bridge named Helen's Way, named after her. She was really a visionary, and is a visionary in open space. She's a very strong advocate of stewardship. And when I first started getting involved in the community and learning about the community, Helen made it very clear that we all have a role in stewardship and all have a role in preserving open space for the next generation. And going about it through volunteering on the Planning Commission, through advocating for, preservation is certainly something that we can do whether we're active in public service or not. And then other just leaders, but both parties. Nancy Johnson is from my hometown, New Britain. She served in Congress for many years. I did have a lot of wonderful interactions with Nancy. I actually covered her in a number of ways when I was a newspaper reporter in New Britain. And again, just a strong-willed advocate, someone who listened and had a great public service career. Peggy Shanks, who was the first female First Selectman, that when I first moved to town, I did get to know Peggy. I continue to work with Peggy on the Aging and Disability Commission and in other ways. And it's just wonderful to see so many women who have served their public in so many different ways and have made a difference in small ways and in big ways. And that's really what keeps me going every day, just getting up in the morning and trying to help someone, whether it's someone in town who is having a hard time looking for a job or needs to be connected with veterans benefits, or someone who maybe is having difficulty paying their fuel bill, and connecting them with the right information or services to help them, as well as testifying at the Capitol as a result of the storm and trying to get changes and improvements made to affect the lives of our residents in difficult circumstances. So.
And to that end, I think it's also important that younger women and girls start to find their place in advocating for themselves or whatever they are passionate about. What would you say to, say, a young woman in high school or in college? How can she become an advocate? How can she get more involved? What are some steps that she could take?
Well, I think about that because my own son, Nathan, just graduated from Tufts University, and I've been thinking a lot about advice and what to tell young people who are entering a very difficult job market, who may be strapped with large loans and expenses and trying to find a job. And what I would tell women as well as young men is find something you're passionate about, find something that you can make a difference in, just do the best you can at doing it, what you love. I think if you don't enjoy something, you're not going to be as successful, you're not going to be as passionate about it. And I think that there's an opportunity for a lot of our young people now to really find a career or find something that you really love to do and make a difference. And I think that the opportunities are so much broader than they were maybe when I graduated from high school, or maybe, Shannon, when you graduated from high school. Our choices, I think, there weren't as many women in law school or in medical school as there are now. There were a lot of, I know, graduates with me from high school who either didn't go on to college or didn't realize the opportunities that they had available. And so what I tell my kids and what I tell others who are graduating is, try to put yourself in a position where you have as many opportunities as possible. Try to learn as much as you can. Try to read as much as you can. You can't ever, an education can never be taken away from you. So I'm a strong believer in education. That's why Andy and I moved to Simsbury to start our family. I think that education makes a complete difference in your life and in your ability to do what you're passionate about. And it allows you to give back and to really have a fulfilling life. It's just wonderful choices out there. I was listening to Facebook wasn't even in existence 8 years ago.
I know.
And so when you tell your kids to have a career, there's jobs out there that you never even heard of that kids could be doing now. So just to be open-minded, to get an education so you have a strong background, and then just the world is your oyster. Take a look at all the opportunities out there and all the areas that you can make a difference.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm a firm believer that there is opportunity for everyone should you seek it, and should you open your mind and your heart to it. So that's a great way of looking at it. Now, recently on the political front, there's been a lot of talk about the war on women in Washington, D.C. in regard to equal pay and a variety of rights that seem to be cropping up again across the country, not only on the federal level, but in states as well. And I find this so intriguing as a woman now to be having these discussions again. So I'm curious as to what your take is on that and this seemingly trend that is going on. I don't know if it's a true trend or what it is, but I'm just curious as to your take on it.
Well, I think that as a society, we really need to make sure that we provide opportunities to everyone and equal opportunities. And I think that's what our country was built on. That's what our forefathers have founded the country on. And we're evolving. We're not perfect. We're certainly, I think, a model for other countries, but we certainly have a long way to go. And so when you look at the laws and the policies that are set, we still have to evolve in terms of equal rights and equal protection. It started with slavery. We didn't have equal protection, equal rights for those of different races, so we've evolved. Certainly the women didn't have the right to vote until 1920, which is not that long ago.
No, it's not.
So we are an evolving society, but I think as stewards of our country, and as we have a responsibility to be involved in our country, to be aware of the rules and the laws that are being made, and to make sure that those laws are applied equally to everyone, not just women, but people who have different religions, people who have different sexual orientation, people who have different races. And so we need to be aware and advocate for those who don't have a voice for themselves. And we need to be careful not to make policy or allow policy decisions that are made that affect people differently. For example, many years ago, the state legislature took up a bill that didn't allow drive-by mastectomies.
Correct.
And so there was legislation that said you would have to be given certain health benefits and certain things that are needed when women are dealing with serious health issues. Those are important issues. The number of days that a woman can stay in the hospital when you have a baby.
Right.
There was an effort to change policies to roll those back to 24 hours.
Right.
And I think as women, as a society, as men who have their own families, I think we need to really be active and be strong vocalists on policy that doesn't allow equal rights and equal protection. And that's what I'm concerned about. I think people should be given the option to make choices. I think if we try to roll those back, people will go around the public system and find other maybe unsafe ways to deal with their own personal choices. Should health benefits cover pills that affect women, such as birth control? Should they affect payment for certain things such as male Viagra? So I think that those issues are important for us as a society, whether you use them or not, whether you believe in them or not. Everyone has their own personal religious beliefs, and I think that's important. That's what our country is built on. But it's when the policies step in and try to legislate how it affects our own personal beliefs that we have to be more vigilant in giving people choices.
And perhaps in that way, as we're discussing, I mean, these are great opportunities for women to speak up and get involved and express to their legislators or their policymakers what their feelings are and what their beliefs are on their constitutional beliefs, their religious beliefs, whatever. Again, there's that opportunity everywhere for everyone to have a voice. So.
Yeah, and a lot of these issues may not even affect you that we should be vigilant about. I know before I came back to Simsbury and ran for office, I was Director of Legislative Affairs for Connecticut Voices for Children. And we were strong advocates for foster care issues. And, we're very fortunate in Simsbury. There are a number of foster care families who take children into their homes and help them mainstream until they can find supportive families. And you might say, well, what does a foster care issue have to do with me in Simsbury? Or, and it affects all of us as a society. If a child's not placed in a good foster care system and doesn't have the support they need, then that child may go on to have other issues that are more difficult, more expensive for society.
Right.
And we lose an opportunity to have a really productive member of society.
Right.
So all of these issues affect all of us, and we need to be aware of the policies being set. A simple change in policy, I know in the foster care system, there was a bill that was introduced that allowed kids to stay in the same school system even if their foster care situation changed.
Okay.
A simple bill like that says, you're not pulling kids out sometimes 5-6 times to change schools, allows a child to have a stable school environment even if everything around them is changing, and allows them to develop some relationships with teachers and principals and students. So that's a simple policy example where we can make a change as a society and be supportive of children that will then go on to be productive members of our society.
Right. We have to be thinking about
the next generation.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
and I think that's what maybe because I'm getting older and I see my children growing, I see our community growing, but I think that's where we need to be mindful. I think the initiatives of preschool education is a big help, because if you can save those kids and get them into a school system early, they can learn quicker. A full-day kindergarten next year we'll have that in Simsbury.
Yes.
And it's an option for parents who feel that it may not be right for their kids, but for those kids that really need to be in a full day system where they can learn at a slower pace or learn at a longer day, that makes a tremendous difference over the long term.
Right. Or allow them to be kids. Allow them to be 5.
Kids to play. Right, you forget.
Right, I have a kindergartner
Yeah.
who will soon to be kindergartner, so I'm excited for the opportunity
day.
for him. That will be.
Is he ready, Shannon, for full day?
I think he will be
Yeah.
tired, but I
Yeah.
think he will be ready for it.
Yeah,
and
that's what I hear parents talking.
Yeah, and I wish it had been available to my other children as well, because I think they could have really benefited from that expanded day and the opportunity to be a 5-year-old child
Exactly.
and have that experience to play in school
Yeah.
and socialize. But what is one of the things that you're most proud of? One of your accomplishments? I would guess your first thing would probably be your family and your children.
Absolutely.
Because I would say the same thing.
Absolutely.
But beyond that, what is something that you really, say this is something that I really worked hard at and I'm really proud of accomplishing?
I guess I would say that I think we've really established as a community a real openness and a transparency where people can feel free to come to our meetings to say what they think. And we foster an environment where people can really be involved in their government. I think local government is the most rewarding of any level of government because you're each and every day right in the community, you're at the grocery store, you're walking around town, you know exactly what's going on. And as a result of fostering that openness and that involvement, so many wonderful things have bloomed from that. And I can't take credit for that because it's all the other. I can celebrate the successes, but I think that if we didn't have that openness and that comfortness in being involved, so many of these initiatives that we celebrate in town wouldn't have happened. For example, the bike-friendly initiative. Yes, the town 20 years ago laid the first mile of bike path, and we've made it a priority to continue that and to have almost 8 miles of bike paths now. But without the volunteerism of really benchmarking the town's efforts in filling out the application for a bike-friendly community, we would never have been designated the first bike-friendly community in Connecticut. Same thing with the Flower Bridge.
Right.
We foster an environment of first saving the bridge, which was planned on being torn down.
Right.
And many
It's
folks
beautiful.
probably remember having to stop at the bridge. It was the only way to get to Simsbury, and letting your neighbor go, and then you're going. But who would have thought that it would be such a beautiful focal point, and all these wonderful volunteers would come out and plant flowers and take care of the system.
It's such a landmark for
Such a
our
landmark. The cooperation between the land trust and the town in preserving so many acres of open space. With the recent approval of the Ethel Walker Woods second parcel, the town now has about 32% of the town preserved as open space. And it wouldn't have happened without a collaboration of certainly the town government, town staff, but also the nonprofit groups, volunteers, residents, and really listening to the public about what they really wanted for the long-term vision of the town, and then implementing that.
So a community initiative
Exactly.
came to light.
Exactly.
Which is nice.
And I guess finally, I would say the town center charrette, which really took a number of groups that were having difficulty communicating, were distrustful of each other, bringing in professionals who helped the town set a vision, putting that vision out there for public comment, public discussion. Hundreds of people took part, some people who had never been involved in a town meeting before, coming up with a vision of the town that we can now implement and now take to developers, which we are doing, and trying to market. Market the town as a great place to live, to work, and to do business. And I think that towns really succeed. The good towns have good governments that are open, that are transparent, that really are there to serve the public instead of forcing a particular idea into the community.
Right.
And we've been the benefit as a community of those initiatives.
Well, thank you. We're almost out of time.
Wow.
So I know that went so
It went
quickly.
so fast.
But thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your world with us, your world in politics with us. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you joining me for my my maiden voyage on the Simsbury Woman.
Well, thank you, Shannon. Good luck. This is going to be a great show. Please watch Shannon.
Thank you very much.
Simsbury Woman.
If you're interested in joining me as a guest on the Simsbury Woman, you can feel free to email me at s.knall, that's Knall, at me.com. And I would love to hear from viewers as to what you thought of the show and what you would like to see for future shows. So thank you, Mary, again for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.